child, I kept asking the questions, who am I, where do I come from, where am I going to go? And from that, I decided to take the course of metaphysics when I was in my 40s.
Okay.
And to me, it's always it's like a self-reflection, okay? And it's always to answer my own questions of who am I, who I am. And so about in my 40s, I went to, I applied metaphysics, School of Metaphysics. We don't, especially in Canada, we don't find it like everywhere.
No.
So I searched online.
Well, yeah, I didn't even know that existed, right?
That's right. So I searched online and I found a school in Quebec.
Okay.
So I applied and I did the first part of the course. It took me about a year, and then I decided to go for the master's.
Okay.
And then that took me about 2 years, and then 10 years after that I decided to do the doctorate.
So I guess a little bit more, you could have really went and studied any kind of higher education. And like you said, you started this in your 40s. So why? Why not just have continued on with whatever it was that you were doing? What kind of made you awaken to, I want to find out more about who I am and my purpose?
On a spiritual level, I needed to connect.
Okay.
And I didn't find the connection that I was looking for. And to me, when I started metaphysics, because of the word metaphysics, it's beyond the physical. It answers to the soul. Okay. And and I think that's the reason why I just wanted to connect to my soul.
You wanted to know more, right? And I guess, and it is hard. I mean, even for myself, I've kind of on a similar journey where you just want more answers, thinking there has to be more to life than the life I'm living right now. There has to be a greater way for me to express myself. And it is hard to find information out there, and I find a lot of times, even for myself, when I take courses, whether it's, kind of train the trainer courses, or it's really for my own personal self. I may not even really actively or professionally go out and use a lot of the stuff that the information I acquire it for myself. So I can see where you just wanted more structured information about how you can live a better life. So it took you 40 years to get there, which is really not a long time, but when you think about it, I mean, most people never get there, first of all. And then there's other people who, whether it's not their first time around, that they've definitely maybe jumped on that path a little bit earlier. So how did it change your life by taking this program?
By taking the metaphysics?
Like more on a spiritual level.
Spiritual level. How did it change my life? Well, it changed my life a lot, because when I started, I used to be an esthetician, if we go back.
Yeah, okay? Please, yeah, let's do that.
I used to be an esthetician, and I worked for about 25 years in the field of aesthetics. And when clients come to you and they start to talk, and then they want your advice, and I was just an esthetician at the time.
Right.
So I felt that I needed more also to help the clients.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think I always had that sense of wanting to help people.
Want to give more.
That's right, want to give more. And then I developed my psychic abilities.
Okay, and how did you do that? Or I should say, first, let's go back. Why did you decide? Because everyone does have psychic abilities. I don't think people, we're just not in tune with it. So why did you decide? And I understand you wanted to give more, but where was the connection with, that's a pretty big jump from going.
Well, I think I've always been psychic. Okay, since I can remember.
Right.
And again, when I was talking to my clients in aesthetics, I could feel things. Okay, so I decided to, maybe I should.
Maybe there's more to just.
More than just that. So here in Sudbury, I was living here in Sudbury at the time.
Okay.
And I decided to take classes to help me develop my psychic abilities.
Okay.
So, and then I started doing readings with my clients on aesthetics.
Got it.
From that, I decided that I needed to know more.
Okay.
Because the psychic is psychic.
Right.
And then metaphysics, it's more in the spirit. To me, it was more in the spiritual.
And I guess it's probably communicating the connection between the two. I guess for me, it's more, how did you realize, and a lot of people, because like I said, I believe everyone has a psychic ability, whether or not they've connected with it or not. And I guess that's more, for people who might, think the word psychic is a little off. I guess it's more of a connection with the spiritual world or connection with the metaphysical world.
With your divine self.
With your divine self. So your higher self, right?
And you learn to listen to your divine self.
And I think for some people, when they get those emotions and those feelings, like you said, you started to feel things when you're talking to people. And for myself personally, I can definitely feel energy. And I always for a long time struggled with that because I thought, first of all, you don't know, if you're not in tune with those feelings, you're thinking, is it what's happening? Am I having an anxiety attack?
That's right.
Because you don't know.
You get bombarded.
That's right.
Okay, and you need to learn to accept that you do feel other people's energy, and you learn to connect or know the difference between your own and someone else's energy.
Oh, that's a good point, because I think that, and if I could kind of put it in perspective for people, if you've ever gone somewhere and all of a sudden you start to just feel uncomfortable in your own skin, or you go into a place and you start to feel a certain way, and that's all about feeling energy.
Yes, and for me it was especially in crowded rooms.
Yes, and a lot of people will take that as having anxiety.
But no, sometimes it is anxiety, but
it's anxiety because you're feeling so much.
Right. So
yeah, and I think, and so a lot of people probably just think, oh, it's just anxiety, but the thing is, anxiety is almost an emotion of communication, and it's trying to tell you that, you are feeling something. So I guess for you, and I think, one of your great gifts is helping people to recognize
that
it's not just anxiety and sweep it under the carpet, but let's work with those feelings that you're having, because those can be great communication pieces in your life. So, how could you explain to someone who is having those feelings and they go to certain places and they get this anxiety, what can they do that really helps them to understand that it's, it may not be, you talked about it being your own energy versus feeling other people's energy.
Right.
And that's hard, because sometimes you just blame yourself and say, oh, I'm just having anxiety, and you get overwhelmed by that. But it may not be your energy you're feeling, you're taking on others. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I guess you would need to ask yourself, what am I feeling? You always need to talk to yourself. Okay, so because you have your conscious mind, the one, your awareness, okay, and then you have your subconscious mind and superconscious mind.
That's right.
Okay, so feelings are always in your subconscious mind. Okay, so at the plexus, solar plexus, and that's where you get all those emotions, all those feelings, and this is what you will feel when you go in the room the first time. And it's your emotions, and when you are bombarded by other people's emotions, this is where it goes.
And it makes sense, because people always talk about their gut feeling, and that's literally the solar plexus. And I guess we'll talk about maybe some of the chakras later on, but that's where the energy is centered, is literally in your gut, right?
That's right. So you ask yourself, okay, what am I feeling? And then you let the emotions come up.
Okay.
Don't be afraid of your emotions. Okay, they talk to you. Okay, so let's say you're in a crowded room and you're feeling anxiety and all this. So talk to yourself. Okay, what am I feeling? Okay, so, and then it's going to tell you. It's going to tell you, if you listen, I'm afraid. Well, what are you afraid of? Okay, what's happening inside of you what's around you that you're afraid of? Because a lot of people do suffer from fear of crowded.
Oh, totally.
Fear of public speaking, or fear of people.
No, I think everybody has, many fears within them.
That's right. And then you ask yourself, okay, so what am I feeling? What is my fear? And then you start change your breathing. Take a deep breath. Okay, and then when you take a deep breath, it feeds your your body. It changes the oxygen.
Well, like,
it gives you energy, and it cleanses the energy at the same time.
Well, Dawn mentioned a good point last week about the whole deep breath, and your brain basically stops thinking in that moment where you take that deep breath. So you just stop everything, and you're in that now moment. So I think that deep breath really is more than just a deep breath, as you're mentioning.
That's right. And then when you take a deep breath, you're starting to reconnect to yourself. Okay. And then you're more grounded. Okay. And you're more inside yourself than outside yourself. And then from then on, then if it's an anxiety, well, sometimes you need to develop skills to really talk to yourself.
Well, yeah, because if you're doing this for the first time,
that's right,
it's going to be a lot, and especially if you have a lot of emotions that you've always kind of swept under the carpet, because we're told not to talk to ourselves. That you're crazy if you talk to yourself. You're crazy if you have that anxiety, and you're never really taught how to deal with it.
That's
and
right.
I think the issue comes from that conditioning we get from society, from our upbringing, whatever it is. And a lot of people just sweep it under the carpet until at some point that bump in the rug is just so big you can't do anything but deal with all those emotions that you've swept. And so the anxiety for some may be stronger than others. So I think that this is, and just to recap, a little bit about what you said to help people is that, if you're feeling that anxiety, just stop and ask yourself, what am I feeling? And you may be feeling, like you said, a few emotions. You might be fear, you might be, nervousness, whatever it is, but I try to identify it.
That's right.
And as you do that, just stop and take a deep breath. And I do believe that if you deal with this properly before you go to these events or before, then obviously you're going to be able to deal with it a little bit better. But if you're doing this for the first time and you're kind of throwing yourself out there, it might be a little bit more challenging.
That's right, because fear, especially when you have anxiety, it's mostly irrational fears. Okay, and irrational fears, you're controlled by your emotions.
Okay,
and let's say that you do suffer from fears, and you come and see me. And the first thing I will ask you is, what is your biggest fear? And then you start with that fear, and you need to go back to when was the first time you felt that fear. Okay.
And do you find for some people the challenge is first identifying the fear?
Of course.
Because it's just, they've been go their whole life. They're almost, I always say that's a new age of zombies where you're not in touch with that subconsciousness.
You did not learn to take a moment and reflect and go back to yourself, your own individual mind. You're always busy listening to other people's mind.
That's right.
Other people's thoughts, okay, and what people say and what people have been teaching you in the past. Okay, so when you're afraid, you need to reconnect to yourself. You're the only one who can tell you what you're afraid of.
That's right. Okay. Well, yeah, no one else can say.
No. But yeah. Okay. So, and the reason why you need to go back to the first time you felt that fear is to center yourself. And you go at that moment, okay, and at the moment, the reason for the fear is always associated with an event, something that happened.
That's right.
Okay, that you were afraid of, that made you afraid of.
Okay.
And when you go back to that moment, you're in the moment.
Got it.
You are going back to feeling those emotions. Okay. And then from then on, with guided questions, and then we can move on to why you're feeling this way and what we can do about it to let go of the fear.
Do you find that some people, and I'm just thinking of my personal experience and other experiences in chatting with other people, that they sometimes block out the event, and so it's really hard for them to really get back to that event because they've almost blocked it out, and it's excuse me, they almost don't remember it.
Yes, it does happen, but then you need to be more. You need to push it a bit more.
And that's obviously what, yeah. And I know you're good at that, and you really do ask those questions, and you do dig deep, because it's not a matter of someone just disregarding the event. You're gonna keep going until you get to that root event, because like you said, that's kind of the foundation for everything that a person has experienced from that point in time to now. And in order to move forward, and I do believe we all have these blocks that have been conditioned in us, and in order to really live those amazing lives, we have to get to those blocks and release them.
Yeah, because I find that the reason everybody, like I know for myself, and I think it's for everybody, we're here, we come here on earth to self-actualize. Okay? You need to find who you are and connect to the best of you, and be that best. But when you have fear, you're disconnected from your best.
Well, yeah.
Okay? And it's important to reconnect to your higher self, your divine intelligence. Divine meaning to me is love.
100%.
Greater self. Your intelligence is we're all connected to that universal intelligence. That's my belief. Okay? And we all have our own individual intelligence. But if we are taught to not connect to our own divine intelligence, then we're not connected at all. So we cannot go to our best to manifest it.
That's right.
Okay? So,
yeah, and you also mentioned a good point that I think we should go back to, is that you said a lot of people let their emotions control them. And this seems to be a common thing in many discussions, that your emotions do not control you. You control your emotions. And a lot of people, you always hear the expression, well, it's, I can't help it, it's my emotions. Well, it just, that makes me cringe, because it's almost like there's like a little man behind the curtain who's controlling your emotions, and it doesn't work that way. You have to be in control of what you're feeling.
Yeah, that's right. You need to connect to your objective mind. You need to be objective. But we're mostly subjective.
That's
always connected to our emotions.
And how, maybe we'll take a quick little break and we'll come back and talk about how people can start to be more objective and in control of their emotions versus the other way around, because I think that itself is life-changing for people, that once they can learn to control their emotions, they're in control of their life and they can start living such great lives.
That's right.
So we'll take a quick little break, and again, I'm here with Mariette Brazeau, who has her doctorate in Metaphysical Science, and we're talking about fear, blockages, and really helping you. Hello, and we are back with Quantum Love Radio on CKLU FM 96.7, and I'm your host, Miranda Rocca-Circelli, and my very special guest today is Madame Mariette Brazeau, who is an expert in helping people to identify their fear, identify emotions, and unleash those emotions that have been blocking their manifestation of success, happiness, and really everything in life. So before the break, we were just talking about how we need to start being more objective versus subjective. And I think that's really important, because as we go through our life, we acquire all sorts of behaviors, all sorts of conditioning, and those are what kind of taint our experiences, because we have all these beliefs that are associated with our perspectives on life. And so when we observe a situation as opposed to the lens of a camera that really is taking in everything in front of it, we're so subjective that we take in the things that match those, conditioned beliefs that we have. Or if we're stuck in a state of fear, we're only observing and taking in the stuff that matches that fear that we're holding on to. So I want to talk a little bit about how we can start to move out of that subjective perspective into more of an objective perspective, because I believe if we could do that, then we're like the lens of the camera. We can take in everything that's in front of us without being subjective to what's before us. And I think that, that helps you live a better life. So maybe you can give us some advice on how we can do that.
For me, I find that for myself, I was very emotional and very connected to my subjective mind.
Okay.
And when I started meditation, meditation, the purpose of meditation to me was to reconnect to my own self and clear my mind. And that's what you need to do to be objective. You need to clear your mind. You need to focus on a point of could be, I like to focus on number one.
Okay.
Okay, when I meditate.
Okay.
And to me, number has no emotion.
That's right.
It's a number.
That's right.
Okay. And number one is number one with the self, number one with the universe, just being number one.
Okay.
And so to clear my mind, that's what I usually do. And I find that 20 minutes meditation is
it's adequate.
Adequate for you to start to clear your mind. And then you start talking to yourself.
Yes, totally.
Okay. So when you're in that state of meditation and connection to your objective mind, then you can, with a purpose, connect to your emotion.
Okay.
But you're in control of your emotion now. Emotions are not in control of you.
That's right.
And that's when you start to heal. Okay. Always with your objective mind, you heal the subjective mind.
And for me personally, I find you're completely right. When I started meditating, that's when my life started to transform. And it was just being in that now. And when I first started meditating, it was, and I had Dawn Laframboise on last week, and we talked a little bit about just starting that process of meditation and how that transformed my life. And then as I progressed, I started to learn different methods of meditation, and I did use like a focusing method where I focused on a particular something or a number, whatever it was, and that helped me get deeper. And I found that is when I really started to become more objective, and where it just heightened your ability to live in the now. Because when you remove all those barriers and those obstacles, like I said, the analogy of the lens of the camera, I was able to kind of take in so much more in each moment in time, where I just got to learn to appreciate and enjoy each moment in time as I lived it. And it's like that part in your mind where, because when you have to be subjective, or you're trained to be subjective, it stops you from appreciating that moment, because you're going through all those things in your mind where you gotta, observe this, don't observe that, observe this, look, take in just this, don't take in that, and it starts to play in your mind where it gets really confusing, and I find it inhibits your ability to just take in the moment.
That's right. When you're in your subjective mind, you're more in your comfort zone of what you know. Okay? And when you need to be objective, you need to go inside your mind. Right? And then sometimes you're not comfortable with that because you didn't learn.
That's right.
Okay? So it's easier for people to stay in their subjective mind.
Well, I always say if you want to start living your greatest life, you have to at first get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because a lot of people find comfort in feeling fear, because that's all they know.
They know how to react to it.
That's right.
And it's not action, it's a reaction.
That's right.
Okay, and when you're in the objective mind, it's a reaction. You're causing, an action. You're causing an action.
That's right.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do, because you're acting out, and you're almost addicted to, first of all, the emotions, and then you're addicted to getting that reaction. And so you're right. You're reacting, so it's almost like you're doing it over again.
Of course.
And again, and like you said, if people don't go back and determine and unleash that moment in time where this all started. And for some people, it could be when they were children. It could be at the youngest, tenderest age that they got this. And I've read so many times that until the age of 6 or 7, you're so impressionable to energy, to experiences, and so a lot of people acquire these behaviors and these preconditioned beliefs at that age.
At that age, and number one reason I find that you do not connect to your own individual mind is, for some reason, as a child, you might have been taught that you weren't good enough, you weren't intelligent enough. So when you don't feel intelligent, you don't listen to yourself.
That's right.
Hey, I'm not intelligent.
I have to listen to others, and get the external credit.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you don't listen to your own intelligence, then it doesn't guide you. Everybody else is guiding you, not yourself.
And it just, you play back instances in your mind, and it may not even been with, it could have been in your upbringing, it could have been in the society you were exposed to, it could have been so many different things that have come in to play to really condition you. And I think that, and of course we're still conditioned every day. And if we haven't learned how to, like you said, listen to our own divine intelligence, then you continue to be conditioned by your environment.
That's right.
And that's...
You're totally disconnected.
That's right. And that's the modern age zombie that I talk about, that you're just literally walking around with your arms in the air and just, you're not taking that moment to take in what your greatest purpose is in living your greatest life, because you don't know your true self. Yeah. You're just lost. And, if we go back to the whole emotions, I think that so many people just ignore their emotions. And so they don't know how, they get so confused that I've experienced it, and I've seen other people experience, when they don't even know how to feel in a particular instance. So for example, you see when people pass and they go through the grieving process, that I find it's not until these life-altering circumstances happen to people that you see that their emotions that they're feeling are actually not associated with the event. And it becomes, for example, you want to feel sadness, but they're feeling everything else in the world as well, because they've never dealt with their emotions. And I find when there's a life-changing circumstance that occurs, it's
too painful.
Yeah, and it creates an outlet.
That's right.
Where all these emotions that they've never dealt with come out in this particular circumstance. And I mean, we've all experienced it. For example, I'm thinking of my own personal experience where I was just not living my greatest life. I wasn't in touch with my divine self. And for example, something as simple as you're having an issue with your cell phone, and you're calling the, telemarketers to deal with it. And all of a sudden, you're unleashing all these emotions to that poor person on the other end of the line. And you're thinking, you get off the phone, you're thinking, why was I just so crazy in that moment? And it's because you're not in tune with your real self.
Your real self. You're disconnected. You need to reconnect. And emotions equals pain.
100%.
And people don't want to feel pain.
No. But I think the important thing that people have to understand is if you keep sweeping that pain under the carpet, at some point it will manifest in ways that you don't want it to.
That's right. So at one point you need to make a conscious decision that you want to heal.
That's right.
And that's a big step. You need to be brave.
Yes.
Okay? And brave in the sense that you need to go and feel the pain. A pain that you feel to release is not as heavy as the pain that you don't want to feel, but you still feel. Okay, so when you say, okay, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to start to feel my pain to release it. So the more you affirm that I am good, let's say that I am good, and your subjective mind is telling you, no, you're not. And then with that affirmation, no, I'm not, you have pain that comes with it.
That's right.
Okay? And the pain is from the first time you felt that you were not good. And when you're going back there, you like it's overwhelming. You just don't want to feel. But at the same time, you have to go there to heal.
That's right. I was watching a show the other day. It was a science show, and they talked about Newton's third law. For every action, there's a reaction. So everything that goes in one way, it has to come out the other way. And I think Dawn mentioned that as well. So, we came in this door to come into this room. We have to go back out that door. And like you said, you have to feel that pain to release that pain. And I think, for people who are, do I do it? Do I do it? But the reality is once you feel it and, release it, it's gone. And you can start to live a better life. I mean, it's not an easy process.
No, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
It's to me, I find that it's a lifetime process.
It is a lifetime process, especially if you've spent a lifetime acquiring those beliefs and those behaviors. It's, again, the same way it's come in, and I believe, for the length of time that it's come in, it's going to come out, relatively the same.
That's right. But at one point when you're more aware of your emotions and you deal it on a day-to-day basis, it's not as painful.
That's right.
It's still there, but you're coping with it. You're releasing it as you go.
That's right.
So it's a lot easier.
Well, yeah, so it's almost like, going to work out for the first time. Yeah, you don't want to do it because you know you're going to be in pain the next day, but then as you get into a routine, you're still feeling a little bit of pain, but it's not to the extent that it was that first time you went in there. And then you start to see the progression of your body physically, and this is the same thing, spiritually and emotionally. And as
everything is connected.
That's right. And as you see the results, it makes you want to continue along.
That's right, because you feel much better.
That's right.
And you're living in your moment. You're not in your past. You're not in your future. You're in your moment. And it's at the moment that you make your decisions, okay, and lifetime decisions. So in the moment, you take a decision. Okay, so. I want to become a metaphysician. Okay. So you know that from that moment on, you're not living in your past. Okay. Everything that you've felt in the past, it's gone. Okay. Because you cleansed it, you healed it. Okay. So what is coming to you is what you are manifesting in the moment.
That's good. Yeah, that's important for people because, like you said, you need to get rid of that. The past is the past. And you need to get rid of the garbage that you've accumulated in terms of emotions and behavior so that you can start to almost reset the dial and start to experience the manifestations of now as opposed to continuously living in that past.
That's right. To me, it's like you need to find your true self.
100%.
And once you found your true self, you need to live with your true self.
That's right. And in order to find your true self, you have to deal with that past experiences that you've had. And like you said, it's such a painful thing for so many people because they don't want to go back there. They don't want to have to go back and re-experience it and feel it. But I think what people have to realize, and you expressed it so well, that it's a moment in time of pain instead of living with that pain every day. So that if you can experience that pain in a way that you're guiding them so that, it's not like they're just experiencing it in an unguided way.
That's it. Yeah.
It has to be a guided process.
That's right.
And that way you can, you can't erase the past, but you can learn from it.
The past is your past, and it's you. It's a part of you. You needed to go there, okay, to learn, and then you take what you've learned, and then you bring it with you.
That's right. But if you don't take the time to learn it and experience it because you've swept it under the carpet because it's too painful for you,
then you're just reacting.
That's right.
And you're creating again and again the same pain.
And I think that's important because people don't realize that by not dealing with their past emotions, by not dealing with that anxiety, they're just recreating it. And it becomes a vicious cycle of, and then they express the why is this happening, why is this well, the reality it's happening because you're manifesting it because you haven't stopped to deal.
That's right, you're in your victim mode.
And I think that's a really important point because I think everybody at some point in time has curled up in that ball and said, why me? And I think that can either be an awakening moment or it could just continue down into that vicious cycle of why me, why me, why me.
And that's where metaphysics is very important. People should take courses.
They should.
They should, because you need to connect to your individual mind, your divine self, to answer those questions. Because when you're in the state of why me and you're the victim, okay, if you don't deal with that, you're going to stay in that state. 100%. So metaphysics teach you to reconnect to your power. Okay. Because if you're a victim, you feel powerless. You lost your power somewhere along the way. Okay. So, and when you're a victim and you lost your power, you're dependent on everybody else to make you happy.
And what a setup for failure.
Of course, disappointment. No one can give you what you want and what you need. You're the only one who can give you exactly what you want and what you need.
And I think that is so important that people understand that, because everyone, I think at some point in time, they have these expectations from others. It's, for example, in the simplest form, you want to go to an event and, you have these expectations of others so that you're going to have, a great time or whatever it is. And, even as a parent, I think that's probably the most challenging part, is that you have these expectations of your children. And rightfully so, because, you feel you've created them and they're, supposed to be, in the image of you, and you have these expectations. But the reality is that each person has their own experiences.
Individual.
Yeah, and they have to go about their journeys, not your journeys.
You're here to guide them, not to control them.
That's right. And I think that's so hard, because when things happen, because you had these expectations, and we've all had these expectations of friends, of whoever it is, and then, they don't meet those expectations, and you've set yourself up for disappointment, because you're saying, well, you're supposed to act out and do this and do that, but you're not. But people you can't control other people's experiences.
That's right. Your expectations are your own. It's not your children's expectations.
That's right.
They have their own.
That's right.
Okay? So you need to learn to identify what you expect, and then make it happen, not depend on someone else to make it happen. Yeah. You need to be the master of your own life.
And so many people are still stuck in that, they're not the masters of their own life. They don't know. And again, and I go back, because I so believe that it's all about what that subjective mind, what you've been conditioned to believe. Some people have been conditioned to believe that you're not supposed to live your own life. You're supposed to, serve others, but not in the form of, mutually beneficial. And a lot of people have these preconditioned beliefs that they just continuously act out of those beliefs, and they limit the potential that they have. They limit, their own expectations are so low when their expectations could be so much higher for themselves. And the focus that they have is not on their divine purpose.
No, it's ego. It's your ego. And your ego is controlled by your subjective mind again. So when you're expecting everybody else to make you happy, you're totally connected from your higher self. But I find that one way for me to help me disconnect from my ego and connect to my higher self was ask yourself that question. How can I? You look at yourself in the mirror, okay? What you see is your reflection, you in the mirror. So you ask yourself, how can I, me, my little one, my ego, how can I be of service to you? Okay? When you look in your mirror, it's you, yes, but it's all of you. Okay? Your physical, emotional, mental, spiritual self. Your higher self. How can I be service to you? How can I serve you better? Okay. And then you can do that to the world in general. Okay. When you go out there, you ask yourself, how can I serve you, the world? Okay. This way, you're not in your ego. You're in the service. You're serving your higher purpose, your higher self.
That's right.
And to me, that helps.
Yeah, I think that's the most meaningful way. And sometimes it takes people a while to figure out how they can serve.
Because it's what can you do for me?
Yeah.
Instead of what can I do for you?
That's right. And I found for myself, on my personal journey, how I started to come into how I could serve the world, how I can basically showcase my talents to better serve and to make the world a better place. And I started it through the simple act of volunteering. And, because when you're in that mode of giving for a greater good, I find it starts to get your mind in a different place where you can start to discover, well, how could I better serve the world? Because you're in that philanthropic environment, and it helps you kind of determine, what can I do to better serve people? And I mean, I've done various volunteer activities in my life till I could really figure out what best serves me. And it really isn't until recently, for example, even with our broadcasting right now, that I thought, what works for me to serve the world in a way that's going to showcase what I have. Because it's not about, putting yourself at the bottom of the list to serve others. You need to be at the top, showcasing what you have to offer, what your purpose is, what your divine intelligence and your skills are to make the world a better place.
That's right, because when you ask, how can I serve you, okay, in metaphysics, we learned that every part of you is connected to the world.
That's right.
Okay, when you meet someone, okay, someone that is a part of your life, okay, she's in effect a part of you, or is a part of you.
That's right.
And when you ask, how can I serve you, you don't exclude yourself. Okay, when you are serving this person, you're serving yourself.
Well, yeah.
And I'm not talking at the ego, like pick up your socks or...
Yeah, You're talking about how you can make someone's life better. In the greater scheme of life.
That's right. You don't exclude yourself.
That's right. Well, I've always understood that, both the good and the bad, what you see in others is a reflection
of yourself.
And so if you're constantly disliking things about others, that means you have those qualities within yourself that you're disliking. And so, I think that puts you in a different mindset of, less judgment on others, because that means you're judging yourself. And people always, and I always try to teach people that, if you are sitting there judging others, you have to understand that, in fact, you judge yourself. And that's such a hard thing for people to really take in, because the ego's in the way and saying, no, that's not true. But the reality is whatever you see in others that you like or dislike is a reflection of what you like and dislike about yourself.
That's right.
So I guess what we'll do right now is we'll take another quick break, and we'll be back. We're with Mariette Brazeau, and we're talking about, I think, amazingly insightful things that are going to help people live greater lives. So we will be back with Quantum Love Radio in just... Hello, and we're back with CKLU Radio, FM 96.7, and you are listening to Quantum Love Radio. I'm your host, Miranda, Rocca-Circelli, and I have with me Mariette Brazeau, who has her doctorate in Metaphysical Science, and today we've been talking about really identifying blocks that are stopping you from living your greatest life, and those blocks are, mostly emotional blocks that you have acquired over, over time, over your experiences in life, and I truly believe that they are blocks, because if you don't stop to identify what's stopping you from living your greatest life, then you're really not living your greatest life, and you're almost wasting away your divine purpose and what you're really meant to do in this world.
That's right, you're just existing.
Yeah, you're that modern age zombie where you're just kind of walking around on autopilot, and you're not stopping to really live in the now and just experience and unleash your talents and everything that you have that was given to you to create. And we were talking about before the break, serving others, and not in the egotistic way, which I think is important, because that, I think, gets so confused, where people think, well, I have to serve others, so that means I have to put myself last. But the reality is, you have to be first to serve others.
You need to put yourself first. You need to always include yourself. Gone are the days, at least they should be gone.
Yeah, they should be gone. They should be gone, of, serving others at your, detriment. It's not about that. It's about taking care of yourself, identifying your true divine purpose, so that you can give to others. And I think that your talents that you have, Mariette, are what help people to do that. Because, again, if you don't go back in time and identify what is blocking you from really serving the world, from really expressing your talents, your skills, and living in your divine self, then how can you move forward? You have to get to those blocks. And I think that 99% of the world, whether they don't understand that, or they don't know how to do that, I think that that's where what you do is you help guide people to identify those blocks. And like you said, when you sit down with a client and they're not able to identify those blocks, well, you're basically not going to let them leave until you get to that core, and unlike I want to generalize, and I will generalize, most therapists, and I think everyone at some point in time has gone to a therapist. It's not about just talking about anything and everything. And even identifying your emotions, that's important, but I think you have to get to that root, that base of what has made you into the person you are right now. Whether it's good or bad, you need to identify that. Because if it's good, then you can just continue to unleash that good. That's right. And you can leverage the good that you have and harness it to continue to live a great life. But if you're not happy right now, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, how could I be happier? There's a block. Mm-hmm. There's a block that's so deep down in there that you need to be guided to unleash it, to identify and unleash it.
That's right. And there are reasons sometimes, well, there's always reasons, but the reason for you not being happy now, it could be because you don't feel you deserve to be happy.
That's very true, and that's a block in itself,
right? That's a block in itself. But it's a belief. Mm-hmm. It's only a belief, and every belief can be changed.
That's right.
It's a negative belief that you accept it as your truth, and it's not. So if I'm not deserving to be happy, happiness equals love, mm-hmm. okay, equals intelligence. Mm-hmm. And if you don't deserve your love, to love and to be loved, you need to go back to understand why you don't, okay? And then you need to reconnect to your own individual love and intelligence. Because when you feel that you're not worthy of, you don't expect it much. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Makes sense, yeah.
You don't expect to be happy.
Because you don't believe that you're, like you said, worthy of it.
And then you need to understand that, okay, I don't expect to be happy, but I want people to make me happy. Mm. But you don't expect it. So it doesn't matter what people do for you, you won't be happy.
I guess it's kind of like, how can you expect others to love you if you don't love yourself?
That's right. So once you identify that you're not worthy of, okay, you need to reconnect to your own intelligence, your own power.
Not in the egotistic way.
That's right. If you're disconnected, you need to reconnect. Your power will give you power. Okay? And we all have, I believe that we're all born with love, divine intelligence. Okay? And we all have that power. We all have the same power.
I agree.
It's what we do with it.
That's right.
At one point, you chose not to believe in yourself, then you're disconnected. Mm-hmm. So you chose unconsciously not to be yourself.
And I mean that you can see how easy it is to fall off track.
Of course. Because
you've got society, you've got friends. It may not even be your parents. You could have had a great upbringing, and maybe it was a teacher or whatever it was. Everyone has experienced something that I believe has created these conditioned beliefs, and they can be changed. And I think that's the most important thing, is that there can be a shift in that paradigm where you can acquire new beliefs.
That's right. So you acquire new beliefs with positive affirmation.
Yes, very important.
And positive affirmation, it's not just you say it once or twice and then you feel it.
Well, I know. I always tell people, they're like, well, I've been saying it. I said, well, how many times have you said this? You have to, this is something that, hundreds of thousands of times until it's been impressioned into your subconscious mind, and your heart and soul has nothing else to do but to believe those words and to act out in those words, right?
Yeah, you can't say to your mind, I'm worthy of, I'm good, I deserve. But your subjective mind, all those emotions that you are stuck in you will come up and say, no, you don't deserve, and you don't feel bad, and all this. So, but with the purpose of healing yourself, and when you start saying affirmations, once you consciously decide, okay, that you wish to heal yourself, so you're taking control. Okay, so I deserve, I am good, I deserve. Eventually, you will start to feel that you're good. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay? And then as you continue to say those affirmations, and then eventually you'll feel 100% good.
And I think it's important to not put a timeline, because every person is different. It may take, and I even for myself, using affirmations, it's funny because I'll change up my affirmations every now and then. And so I'll say one for a period of time, and then something will manifest. Mm-hmm. That's so obvious to me that that's in line with that manifestation. And I could have never predicted when that would manifest. And then there's other affirmations I use for even more extended periods of time, whether it's months, even years. And it's until you feel the change, and it could be different for everybody. And I think that's the issue even people have with anything, is that they don't see immediate results, or they have expectations. Yeah. So they say, if I don't see this exact thing,
then it doesn't work.
And I try to tell people that you have to be so open-minded to what will come to you. And you can never expect when and even how it's going to come to you, but you have to continue, or it will never come to you.
That's right. An affirmation, I just need to explain to you how it works.
Yes, please do.
Okay. Let's say you start saying an affirmation. When you come and see me, I work with the mirror.
Okay.
Reflection, when you look at yourself in the mirror. So you'll be saying the affirmation in the morning. You look at, I want a big mirror. You really need to look at yourself. Okay. So you say, I am good in the mirror. You can't, sometimes people can't even look at themselves.
Well, it takes time. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you start saying, I am good, I am good. You say it for about 2 minutes. And then you bring your awareness to your solar plexus.
Okay.
You bring your attention. Okay. You say, I am good. You close your eyes. And then you bring your attention to your emotion and to your feelings. And you let yourself feel.
Mm.
All the emotion contrary to I am good will come up. You'll start with the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might be crying the whole time, or you feel the anger, the rage, because the pain.
That's what's coming out.
That's right. So that would be in the morning, okay, before you leave for whatever you do, your work, your day. And then affirmations are your superconscious mind at work for you. Okay? So your mind, your superconscious mind works for you. It will create for you events, okay, that will bring you face-to-face
experiences.
Yes, with your feelings. Okay? So now that you've consciously decided to believe that I am good, it's going to create a situation that you will prove your goodness. Because
validate
when you start the affirmation, you need to prove that you're good.
That's right.
Okay, because you don't quite feel it.
The ego coming in there.
That's right. Okay, so you're creating situations to prove to you that yes, indeed, you are good. Okay, and to connect you at the same time to your pain, because there is a belief that you're not good. Okay, so you're working on both.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then I like my clients to say the affirmations before they fall asleep. They're in bed, okay, and after meditation, okay, and then they say, I am good, for about 2 minutes, and then they bring their attention to their solar plexus, and they start feeling. So, and now your superconscious mind will be working with your dreams. That's very interesting. Yeah, because in your dreams, you're letting go. You're healing. You're letting go of what is not good for you, your emotions, because you've given the okay. Okay, so your higher self will be helping you to connect to those emotions that needs to be released.
Okay,
and sometimes the dreams that you'll have could be nightmares, because in nightmares it's to make you aware of something.
Yeah,
you're feeling something, your fear, you're feeling your emotion. It needs to come out.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that nightmares will
it's happening, or
yeah,
that's right.
No, it's just
because it's just a dream
the
state.
Purpose of healing. That's right. So it's going to be working in your dreams, and then it's good to journal when you do affirmations.
Okay.
Because the dream will give you
insight,
perspective.
Okay,
and will connect you to your emotions. Will connect you. Maybe the dream will remind you of something that happened in the past.
That's right.
And it's coming up.
Okay.
And it's good to write, to journal.
Okay.
To let it all come out. So that's how affirmations work for you. So the more you say it, the more you'll be comfortable with the affirmation. And until you don't, you do it until you feel good.
That's right. And there is no time.
That's right. And when you're good, let's say that people believe that they're not good, so they don't listen to their higher self, their divine intelligence. Once you believe that you're good, you open yourself up mentally, okay, to your own individual intelligence. You start to listen. You have all the information that you need to live your life.
That's right.
It's all in you. Okay? So once you believe that, yes, I'm good, you start to listen, okay? And then you start to create your life.
And you notice that, and I think that's where, people may not fully be aware of all that's happening within them, but what they will be aware of, like you said, they'll start to feel good. They'll start to experience experiences in their day-to-day life that are going to match that feel good.
That's right. Good is global.
That's right.
On all level. Okay? At the emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, sexual, material, and financial.
Okay.
On all levels.
All right.
Okay? Good is good.
Good is always good. And so when you start to, by use of affirmations, by use of identifying those blocks, you start to realize things happening that are going to match whatever it is that you're now feeling. So like you said, the global feeling, you're feeling good. You're going to attract more experiences that feel good. And so you may not even realize any of this is happening until all of a sudden you're in a moment where you're saying, wow, the situation is what I've always wanted. Or
that's right. And your physical pain is gone.
Yeah.
Your shyness is gone. Your fear is gone.
So you can go to that place and not get all the anxiety, and you may not even realize until all of a sudden you have that aha moment where you're sitting there thinking, oh my God.
And that's when you can start living your purpose.
That's right. And I mean, that's a process, and that may take time for some people to get there. And I think, you have to be patient with that process, and that's one of the hardest pieces, I think, is to really be patient with.
You need to be gentle with yourself.
Yeah, because we're just, like I said, that we're just used to, we're so conditioned, and we've conditioned ourselves even, not only just the external factors that, again, if you don't see it, you can't believe it. And it's the other way around, and you really have to believe in what you're capable of doing in order to see it and experience it.
That's right. So even if you don't believe at first, eventually you'll get there.
I think that's really good. So we'll take another quick little break, and then we'll come back with, again, we're with Mariette Brazeau, who is an expert in helping you identify your blocks, guiding you through the process of living your greatest life. And I do believe that I wish I could take you and multiply you a million times and bring you with me and place you places, because I think that everybody at some point in time, they need to, everybody has to identify those blocks, because we all have them. It doesn't matter who you are. You have a block. It could be a little block. It could be a large block. I know for myself that it was, a block about success. And I struggled for so long, and it was really identifying my true purpose until that was, what was blocking me. I was going all these different directions until I realized this is what I need to do to serve the world in a greater way, and that's when success came. So it took time, and I wish I would have met you a while ago, but this was my journey and this was my process, and now I can talk about it. But I think that Mariette is so talented and can really help people live their greatest life. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back with Mariette, and we'll chat a little bit more about how you can identify those blocks. And Mariette will give her coordinates, and that way you can touch base with her, because I think everyone should visit you. So we'll open the floodgates. So we'll be right back. We'll take a short little break. Hello, everyone, and we are back with Mariette Brazeau on Quantum Love Radio, CKLU 96.7, and I'm your host, Miranda Rocca-Circelli. And I think today has been such an insightful day for so many people out there. I think it's increased their awareness on why maybe they're not as happy or fulfilled as they should be in life, because life is about creation. It's about living your greatest life, serving your divine purpose, and through that you can then serve the world and make the world a better place. Because if you're not being you're divine, you're not following that divine purpose, you're not in touch with your divine intelligence, then you're really not serving anyone, really. And so what Mariette does, and I think it's just so, what she does is just so unique, so important. I was saying earlier, I wish I could multiply her and just bring her everywhere, because I think everyone needs to just touch on those blocks. Everybody has blocks. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, first of all, if you're sitting there and you're not happy with your life, you're not happy, or you feel that you want to be even more fulfilled, that you want to give more, you want to do more, the only way to do that is to identify something that's blocking you. Mm-hmm. So there's something that you've experienced at some point in your life that has created a belief in you that is blocking you from moving forward in the direction that you want to move in. And what Mariette does is she absolutely helps you identify that. And we were talking about how, once, people go through the process of identifying the block, unleashing the emotions, through the use of affirmations that are going to impress upon the subconscious mind, and then, the emotions follow. And it's really like the medicine wheel where everything's connected. The spirit, the mind, the body, the emotions, it's all interconnected. But an important thing that we should talk about as well, how you know this is working so that you're not giving up, is that life seems to just flow almost musically, where it's in harmony, and there's less resistance. So could we talk a little bit about that? Because I find if people don't see those immediate, those immediate reactions or those immediate situations, they feel that what they're doing is not working. And there's no length of time that could say, okay, well, if you do this for 10 days and 2 hours, then you're going to get this result. That doesn't exist, because we're all unique. No. And so, let's talk about how, the results that people can see, can experience, and they know that there's a shift that's occurring within them.
For me, I believe that the shift, once you're aware of, you're working on yourself and you're aware of what's happening, you need to be aware of synchronicities. Okay? Because life will bring you where you need to go at the right time, the right place. Mm-hmm. Life, and I do say, when I say life, I mean your higher self, your divine power, will bring to you the people that you need, to manifest your dreams. Mm-hmm. Will create situations for you to manifest your dreams, to connect to what you want, connect to the people, the right place, the right time. Mm-hmm. So synchronicities is very important.
And the blocks you have prevent the synchronicity.
That's
or
right.
prevent you from seeing the synchronicities.
But once you're more aware, you're more in your objective mind, so you see more clearly. And things become easier.
Easier to notice, easier
when you're on the right path. When it's easy, whatever comes to you, you don't have to work. There's no blockage.
And I guess a good example, from my day-to-day life to help people understand what that means when things are easy. For example, let's say you're trying to go you need a particular client, and you're contacting them, and you're not getting a response, or you're thinking, oh, why is this happening? Or you want a particular job, and you're sending out your resume, and you're doing everything you can, and it's not happening, and you're thinking, and then you just keep pushing.
You keep pushing, because when you keep pushing like that, it's because you don't really believe it. Okay, you feel as if you need to push to prove, to push, to get there. You don't. You need to decide what you want. Affirm it. I want to be radio host.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
So, and then I want to be a radio host. You need to look at why. And you need to see yourself as a radio host. when you see yourself, it's easier for your mind to accept it as true.
So you have to envision yourself actually in that process.
And then once you see it, you feel it.
And I think you just to go back a little bit, you touched on an important part. You have to see yourself in that position and ask yourself why, but not just why in terms of a selfish response.
No.
You have to look at it, why in terms
how can you serve?
How can you serve others through that
What's your
position?
purpose in being
That's right.
a radio host?
And I think a lot of people they don't understand that, or they don't see that, where they think, well, I want that so that I can, make more money, or I can move up in the world, but they're forgetting, how is that going to serve a greater good out there? And I think that's a missing piece that a lot of people forget, because they're thinking, well, I just want to get that promotion, or I just want to get that because I want this and I want that. But it's not just about that.
No, it's why do you want that? What's going to do for people, for you? How is it going to serve you?
And I think that's where, so like you said, you doubt it. And I think doubt comes when you're standing from that egotistical standpoint, because you can't fulfill the ego. The ego can't be fulfilled. And so you're pushing, so you keep emailing, and you're getting angry because you're thinking, oh, why am I not getting this, or why is that person not calling me back? And that's working against the grain.
That's right. And once you know the why of your purpose, okay, now it's your higher self will be manifesting your greater purpose.
That's right.
And so we'll bring the people, the places, the whatever you need to manifest you being a radio host.
And so we can see that when I for me personally, it's when I look back and say, and I'm grateful for certain things that I was pushing for and they weren't working out, and then I realized, well, if those would have worked out, then I wouldn't be serving the way I'm serving, and
it wasn't for your greater purpose.
That's right. And so things are working, like you mentioned, when things flow. So for example, and it can be in the most, and I always tell people, don't worry about how, because you don't know how. You could be going to the movies with your kids and you run into someone who says, hey, we're looking for this person to fill this position, and you're thinking, oh my God, that's my dream job, and it just, you don't even have to send your resume. It's just that easy that it just flows. And I think that some of the blocks that we have are also in, for me it was like, no, you have to work hard. You have to start from the bottom.
You need to work hard.
Yeah, and it's like, what does that mean? And you're thinking, am I working hard? I don't know. Do I have to work harder? Like, what does that mean? Do I have to suffer?
When you're saying, am I working hard enough, is, am I good enough?
That's right.
Okay?
That's exactly it.
That's right. So then you need to prove yourself. Okay? So if you believe that I'm not good enough, it doesn't matter what you're going to do. Okay?
Because you can't satisfy the ego.
You'll never work hard enough to manifest what you want, because I'm not good enough.
And I think a lot of people struggle with that, because they think, they have these beliefs that it has to be a certain way. It has to go a certain route. And the reality is
it's
you don't know.
Just let it come.
Yeah, because the universe, like you said, that your super conscious self that works hand in hand with the universe will always bring you that and beyond what you've asked for.
And don't be afraid of what, let's say, okay, you did the manifest the affirmation, and then you visualize yourself, you know why, the purpose of it. Now you're ready to take action. You need to take action.
Well, you do. You can't just sit around and let it all come to you.
But don't be afraid of taking action, even though you don't know what to do.
Okay.
So whatever comes to you, accept it, and take action from that.
That's a perfect example, because I always tell people, when we talk about the law of attraction and it all works hand in hand, when you ask for what you want, and you believe in it, and I think that's where you have to get to those preconditioned beliefs and rewrite your beliefs. And then to receive, it's not just sitting there. You have to be proactive.
That's right.
So you have to put yourself out there. So, for example, if you want to be a singer, a famous singer, well, then you need to go practice your vocals. You need to be ready for your moment to shine, because you don't know when it's going to happen. But if you're not out there and doing the action part, followed by you need to have the determination, it's never going to just come to you if you're sitting on your couch watching.
So you're preparing yourself.
You got to prepare yourself. And I think that's a big piece that's missing, where people just kind of, okay, well, I've asked, and I believe it's going to happen.
So expect it.
Yeah. So, but you have to have the get out there, knock on those doors, keep going, and be ready for that moment when it all happens, because it will happen. Mm-hmm. You don't know when.
It's a matter of time.
It's a matter of time. So I think our chat's just so fascinating, and I hope, and I pray that people will come to you, because I think that you can transform people's lives in so many miraculous ways, we'll use that word, by just identifying what has blocked them. I mean, even in just our discussion today, and it really, just asking personal questions from my personal experiences, I believe that you even helped me progress in my journey. So I thank you for that. And, don't be afraid, because Mariette she's going to give you her coordinates in a minute, but she can also be reached via Skype. So if you live anywhere in the world and you feel that you're not living your greatest life, you can reach Mariette, because she will reach out to you via Skype, via phone, to help you live your greatest life. So I'll let you plug away with your coordinates. How can people find you?
I work at the Tree of Life North in Sudbury on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So for clients from the Sudbury area, mm-hmm. For in-person, okay, they just call they can call my number 705-492-2652, or call the Tree of Life North, 671-2000.
Yes.
I also work in the West Nipissing area.
Okay.
Sturgeon Falls, Field, Cache Bay, Verner, and I have an office, and I can be reached again at 705-492-2652, or at my website, www.mariettebrazeau.com. And you can email me at info@mariettebrazeau.com. And like Miranda said, you don't need to come and see me in person to do consultations or readings. I can do it via Skype, FaceTime, or email, or by phone.
Which I think is really important, because this is for everyone and anyone out there who, again, just feels that they want to live a better life. Mariette will definitely help you do that in so many different ways. So I hope you enjoyed our show today. It's Quantum Love Radio, and you can reach me by going to my website at www.howtousethelawofattraction.biz. You can also follow me on Twitter at mompreneurguru, and if you have any questions, please visit my website, and you can contact me that way. Again, I hope you've had a life-changing experience today, and I look forward to chatting with our guests next week, who will be Lynn Filio, and we're going to be talking about angels, which I think is an amazing topic. So thank you again, Mariette, and we will see you all soon.